Hi everybody, welcome back to another episode of our Dungeon Boss Tower series. This is likely going to be probably one of the last entries into this series. I haven't been doing it for quite some time. The last time I ran a tower was with my alt account, which was a lower level at the time. Ran it every 5 levels. Not really a lot of views on those. There wasn't much opinion about them and much really needed to be covered. Since those days, there has been an update to the tower where the enemies now have runes on them. It's been a lot more difficult for a lot of people, and so I've been getting questions all the time in terms of what do I do to run the tower both quickly and, more importantly, successfully. So my tower team doesn't vary too often. What I do the first time I come into the tower is I do take a quick stock to see if there's any really gnarly teams. There's really only 2 variations of one team that I use, and then there's a backup team that I use if that one falls apart. What I'm typically looking for is when I scroll through here is looking for those pesky Solaris teams that have Grognog and Lily on them as well, which I don't see any, which basically opens up pretty much free reign here. So my primary team for the tower looks like this. It's obviously tower is always Zom-centric. You should be using Zom for the tower, no questions asked, just because of the minion mechanic and how it revives your heroes. So take the best runes you have, put them on Zom, and that's a start. I then add Shade for because he's a one-shot killing machine usually, and then usually both Furno and Koros. Typically, the reason I use this team is because Furno and Koros are purgers by nature, and so even if you run into a Solaris team, I can purge that feather and ultimately use Zom's Taste for Brains to get rid of Solaris. For the most part, I'm just auto-running this. I'm not doing too much of actual play here, unless it's a rank 70 team. Excuse me. If it's a rank 70, then I will usually play it out a little bit. Or if there's a enemy shade, I like to try and mitigate that as well, because I don't want him spirit linking and ultimately hurting me. If there is an enemy Ella, I almost always manually play it because I don't want her to accidentally do something that's going to kill my Zom. But for the most part, it's just auto running, so as long as you put really good runes on your heroes, it should be doable. I know a lot of you mid to lower upper level people may not have the best runes out there and might run into some more difficult towers. My suggestion there would be to focus on Zom, build an extremely strong Zom team, or at least extremely strong Zom, and hope that he doesn't get killed by anybody. If you have a really defensive Zom, he should be able to handle almost any team, even if they turn the tides against the rest of your team. Zom alone is going to be the key. So usually when I run this team, Koros and Furno die all the time. That's no big deal. Really, all that I care about is that they have their purges up when necessary, and really it's not going to be an issue until I get to floor 3 here where we have Solaris. So I'm just going to do another couple quick auto runs, but honestly there's not much to this particular video. I'll run through the other teams that I have just to let you know what else I do in the event that something goes wrong or unexpected. Again, I just do basic auto run here. That's usually how it goes. Shade's like I said, a one-shot machine. He gets his 1 pot shot in, even if he dies after that, Zom will bring him back. So that, like that, with Koros and Furno both down, they can do their worst, and Zom's gonna still hold up pretty well. So I'm not overly concerned. I do have 1 vampiric rune on Zom. Yeah, not really necessary, but I threw it on there just for some supplemental healing, in addition to what he normally does from his passives. When I come around to tougher Solaris teams, like this one might be, particularly with Leo in it, what I do is I actually take out Koros and just leave Furno, and I replace with Hopper. The reason being is I like Hopper to destroy corpses. That's the only reason you'd use Hopper. So I know that we can do that with Zom, but the thing is, occasionally when you get some of those floors like that, sometimes things go south. You're forced to heal, or if you just use Zom in the floor before this one, Sometimes you don't have Taste for Brains up. Hopper is a good alternative to Zom's Taste for Brains if you don't have that available. So when I get to teams like this, I typically tend to manually play it. If I ran auto run on this one, what's going to happen is ultimately they're going to attack out of order. Leo's going to be reviving people. It's not going to go very well. And ultimately on that second turn, Koros is going to do his siphoning rampage. And to be honest, even at level 65, he's likely to rough this team up pretty badly. And I'd like to keep most of them around as long as possible. So I almost always go after Leo first, just because of he's a nuisance. And most of the time he doesn't get killed like that, so nothing I can really do with that one. But if he doesn't die, then it's a little bit easier, I guess. But what I'm going to end up having to do here is actually using Zom to purge him instead. So that still leaves Solaris, but ultimately not a big deal because Furno's going to help clean the rest of that up. So now that basically Grognog is gone. At this point here, it's over no matter what. I could actually auto-run from this point, and I'm extremely confident. Once that wildfire spreads, it's game over. So this is the second variation of the team that I use here. In the event that something goes sideways, you'll notice that this team that I'm using here didn't have any beasts in it. So if Zom dies, then I will switch out and use a full beast team with Hopper as well. So if Zom dies, and only Zom dies, we replace it with Gortusk, Solaris, Grognog, and Hopper. This will be my second team. This is another great auto-run team. When I use this team is going to be an auto-run, but with abilities. The only thing you have to watch out for is if you get a really, really tough team, you have to watch the Fury meter on Solaris. If you're just blindly auto-running with abilities, occasionally her engulfing flames might kill the rest of the squad, and you win the level, but then Solaris is dead and she doesn't come back. So take that with a grain of salt, but otherwise I'll just let this go as it is. And you know, it may take a little bit longer, but it's mindless. I don't really have to think about it that much. So now in terms of total time, obviously this is not necessarily a speedrun team. I don't really look at the tower as a speedrun for gems anymore like it used to, where you could just auto-run a couple of folks with epics on there. It does go pretty quick, maybe about 15 total minutes. I usually run this at night after I get home from work and kind of just settling down. It doesn't require a ton of thought for me, but like I said, I also have some pretty solid runes. It's going to depend heavily on your rune availability. If you're still trying to work through and beat this for the first time, I don't have many tips for you other than to rune up as best as you can and focus on a Zom team if you can. Other than that, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to let me know. Otherwise, that's all I got for now. We'll see you again next time. Thank you so much for watching this video and supporting my channel. If you like this video, please show your continued support by hitting that like button, and be sure to check out both my YouTube channels for new content all the time. And always remember, peace is a lie, there's only passion. We'll see you next time.